Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
Beach FM, wonderful to welcome back on this Monday morning. Mayor of the Kapiti Coast, Gurunathan. Guru, a very good morning. Welcome to you.
Good morning. Good morning, John.
I believe you're coping with another national policy statement that has real implications for the way we move forward.
Right. I mean, this is the national policy statement on urban development. So it is creating new policy directions, and one of the key areas is intensification of urban development.
Well, that's something that I know the KCDC have got certain zones attempting to encourage medium density development, and it hasn't gone all that well, has it?
Well, that one is about, I think, more than 12 years old.
Yes.
And this was zoning for medium density housing, right?
Yes.
So what's happened now is currently under this new national policy statement, which we will have to put into our district plans by mid-2022.
Whoa.
It makes Kapiti a Tier 1 urban environment, which means similarly to Porirua, the two hard councils in Wellington City, the intensification of development can mean up to minimum of 6-story buildings.
Mm.
I mean, you look at the Link apartment.
Yes.
How many stories is that?
Well, very high, and it was highly controversial at the time, I seem to remember.
Yeah, so imagine that being the norm in the key areas in our urban centres.
Yes.
I think Paraparaumu is considered a metropolitan centre zone.
Wow.
In the heights of at least 6 stories. And what they tell in the flipped it, because the policy direction is you have to give reasons why you are not building 6 stories and above. You've got to give reasons. If anything below that,
Wow.
you have to give reasons why. So it's an enabling legislation. So the government is quite serious.
Just by the by, this is quite interesting because I tend to look on this area as basically a nice, almost a country type location. Where I work, I literally walk past cows on my way to work. And basically, the Kapiti Coast started off as a collection of batches or cribs, depending on which island you come from, and it's sort of slowly grown up. It was essentially a beachside retreat for Wellingtonians for much of the time, with not a lot of local population. And now we're being asked to consider the fact that we're a Tier 1 urban location. This is quite a mind change for me.
It is, because this is part and parcel of keeping the urban development, but mind you, this prevents the sprawl.
Yes.
Which is a bad thing, I think. So in urban centres, you increase intensification, particularly around your transport hub, public transport hub.
Mm.
So what this does is also, as part and parcel of our national land transport policy also, and this, they are trying to shift modes of transport to the public transport area, reduce the reliance on private vehicles.
Yes. Yes.
So with that also, the national policy statement requires us to, within 18 months, to remove minimum car parking requirements.
So that would imply that often, and I presume this is for private premises, not for businesses, this would remove the requirement to have parking on the local section, on your section, and that means intensification of housing once again, doesn't it?
That's right. And also less reliance on private vehicles. So, and councils are required to have a comprehensive parking management plan. So we have to have a big picture, not the parking requirements are not linked to each of those developments. They're taking up the minimum requirements there. So therefore, the onus falls on the larger, big picture development of parking areas. It's a big shift in mindset.
Absolutely. Does this mean we're going to end up looking like Coronation Street?
Well, I suppose the new urban design is going to be sort of friendly for the sort of non-private vehicle transport, more neighborhood type design interaction. and also intensification in urban transport areas to prevent the urban sprawl.
Yes, a lot of work for the council, Guru, in that if you've got to get this in place within a couple of years, there must be a lot of background work that has to be done to make that possible.
And we have discussed on this program previously on the three waters.
Yes.
And that's a 3-year plan, and that's a massive plan, changes. And so we have this. So we've got, the next 3 years are going to be really, really interesting in terms of the huge pressures and the changes in the direction that we are heading. And on top of that, we're trying to cope with what COVID recovery is all about, how we get out of that. So who wants to stand for mayor?
I don't. That's for certain sure. So let's go back to the first point you made. Is it going to be the norm that buildings will be 6 stories? And you've got to come up with a really good reason to build lower than 6 stories. Is that what you're telling me?
So, yes, that's right. You put it on really well. That's a shift. It's a flip of the policy direction.
Massive.
So what that does is it enables developers to do it. They don't have to give reasons why they want to build high.
Well, that will certainly suit them, I guess.
Yeah. But then, looking back to our experiment with medium density housing, around public transport modes, we have that in Waikanae, we have that in Paraparaumu, Ramadi beach area. Paraparaumu beach area is the only place that has picked up quite a bit. The rest of the areas, it hasn't, because the developers are responding to the market, and there doesn't seem to be demand for medium density buildings as much.
Well, this certainly is a massive shift. So it certainly does mean that intensification is going to be the trend. Do you think that's going to be the case for private buildings as well? We're very wedded, I think, in New Zealand to a single-storey house. We don't have a lot of double-storey houses with the bedrooms upstairs, and given our ageing population, there's a lot of sense to that, to have everything on the one level. But do you think we're going to have more apartment-style buildings that people will be gravitating to in their private residences?
Right, but it's sort of, they've taken a pretty holistic approach in the sense that these highly intensive areas going upwards as a priority to be done in public transport mode.
Yes.
Hubs, where you have public transport hubs, like railway stations around those areas. That's where the emphasis is, gaining emphasis in. Not in these outer suburban areas.
Well, quite a few of our suburban areas are quite well serviced by public transport, but you could expect that eventually that thinking could expand to make residents along the public transport routes even more desirable.
Yes, but I think it is enabling piece of legislation links to transport hub areas. But I take your point that you could set up the culture for such, probably around shopping areas.
Yes.
We have sort of out in the suburban areas, we have the corner dairy areas, and a collection of shops around, like the Kenakena shop. It could happen, I'm not sure.
Right. Well, this has been absolutely fascinating. Whole new world, a new vista is opening, and a whole new way of living is the way we're being nudged, obviously. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Mr. Mayor. It's once again been very illuminating and very valuable for our listeners here on Beach FM. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Thank you to the listeners.
106.3 Beach FM.